What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. So the Politics Live show was talking about Boris Johnson, who was announced as the winner of the Tory leadership contest earlier today, and will become our next Prime Minister tomorrow once Maybot steps down. On the panel they had the Scottish National Party MP Ian Blackford, the Brexit Minister James Cleverly, Tory MP Gillian Keegan, and the Sun newspaper's political editor Tom Dunn. The whole programme was dedicated to this topic, so this video is going to be a long one, even though I have cut out bits that are talking pointless dribble that I couldn't care less about, but of course the Ramonas can't help spouting more Project Fear, so there's still plenty to go over. Now before we get into the video, I just want to thank the channel's Patreon, Subscribestar and PayPal supporters, along with everyone who watches my videos, likes and shares them. 26,000 subscribers in 2.5 months is insane. Thank you all for the support. Now let's check out the first clip.
Obviously taking pictures of everybody as they are leaving after the announcement. Let me show you this tweet from Theresa May, who is still Prime Minister until tomorrow. Many congratulations to Boris Johnson on being elected leader of the Conservatives. We now need to work together to deliver a Brexit that works for the whole UK and to keep Jeremy Corbyn out of government. You will have my support from the backbenches. Call for unity there. How easy will it be? Let's just get reaction from our other guests. Angela, what do you think?
Well, there was nothing surprising about the result.
No.
But I would say from now on in, expect the unexpected. And I think it's extraordinary, the result we've seen, because if you think about Boris Johnson's career, whether it's his private life, professional life, political life, the scandals and chaos that's followed here would have done for any other candidate, but that's all factored in and seems not to have mattered. I think it shows how the Conservative Party has changed. So I am quite fearful for the future. I would like to think we'd see a different kind of Boris Johnson, less unpredictable, because this is a very, very difficult time for the country. I think in the next few days we'll see some announcements to try and take sort of a bit of the initiative. But I think in the medium term, I'd be quite concerned where Boris will go and if he will continue to be as unpredictable as Prime Minister as he has been in other jobs that he's had.
You've been hugely critical of Boris Johnson. Everybody knows that. Are you going to give him a chance as Prime Minister to set out his stall?
Well, you know, I think the fact of the matter is that we had a really crucial vote in Parliament last week on whether or not Boris Johnson could prorogue Parliament. And the government was defeated.
From the House of Lords.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm grateful for that, Angela, in this case. A defeat of 41. And what you saw is a number of Conservative members of Parliament that voted for that motion or abstained. We've had Conservative ministerial resignations over the last few days. We've had Conservatives talking about motions of no confidence. This is absolutely unprecedented. Someone that's become Prime Minister and he's effectively done for before he takes office.
Right.
What Parliament will do, and I will work with the Labour Party, with others, with Conservatives, to make sure that we take no deal off the table. We can legislate for that. This Prime Minister is not going to be given the authority to take us out of the European Union on no deal. James talks about him having a mandate. He doesn't have a mandate from Parliament. He hasn't been voted in by members of Parliament, and he certainly hasn't been voted in by the public. And the people of Scotland will certainly be looking at this and be singularly unimpressed with Boris Johnson.
But during the campaign, I think it's been interesting how he's played to the gallery. And this thing about proroguing Parliament, trying to shut down Parliament. Why did he never rule that out? I think that's been extraordinary for somebody coming to be Prime Minister that wouldn't rule out he would shut down Parliament to try and get his way.
Right, well, what's the answer to that, James? Because you're hoping to be on his team, I presume. You'd like to be in the Cabinet.
I'd like to make sure we deliver. I'd like to help the Prime Minister deliver the agenda that we promised the country. That's always been my position. I was very supportive of Theresa May
as party chairman or Brexit secretary. Or
Andrea's absolutely right on this. It's pointless speculating. The Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister, when he takes office, will make those decisions. But actually, what we've seen here is two political parties are clearly already quite scared of someone who they know is very good.
I don't think we're scared, James. Okay. I think the reaction in Scotland has been quite interesting. Look, the fact is that people in Scotland are going to be horrified about Boris Johnson dragging us out of the European Union. We're certainly scared that if he was able to shut down Parliament to get his way without parliamentary support, we'd be scared of that. We're certainly not scared of Boris Johnson.
And we should all be nervous. If you look at some of the things Boris Johnson has said throughout his parliamentary career, he changes, he switches his mind. What makes me the most nervous is the unpredictability of Boris Johnson as a Prime Minister.
Well, I mean, he's done for, says Ian Blackford, before he starts.
Both proved my point nicely, thank you. The point that I've always made is when he was in executive office, when he was Mayor of London, he actually had a very, very successful record, beat Labour comprehensively in London twice. That's why the our political opponents are actually really worried about.
Well, let's talk.
Well, it doesn't take the Labour Lord long, an unelected spunk trumpet, to put Project Fear nonsense out there, saying expect the unexpected and how she is fearful for the future. That took a long time, didn't it? The whole country fears the future if a Labour government is in charge, even more so when it's led by the Marxist fuckpig Commissar Corbynov. Next we hear from the shitweasel Ian Blackford claiming they had a crucial vote on stopping proroguing Parliament, when we already know that vote did very little to stop a no-deal Brexit or proroguing Parliament. If Boris decides to prorogue Parliament, the 5 days your amendment would allow Parliament to be open would not be enough to do anything anyway. He has been told that already in the last couple of days, yet he still sits there talking complete nonsense. This tosspot was never going to give Boris a chance. He called him racist twice in the House of Commons within a week recently. He fears Boris will deliver Brexit, so Ian is completely shit in the bed right now. He goes on about the resignations and abstentions like they matter. These people jumped before they were pushed. They all knew Boris would sack them, and to save face they quit. These are crying Ramonas who piss and whine when they don't get their own way. He finishes up saying the people of Scotland won't like this. Well, from what I see, Ian, the people of Scotland don't like you, Nicola Fishlip Sturgeon, or your piss-poor political party that is given the illusion of power by the UK government, just to stop idiots like you from constantly crying about how oppressed you are. The Labour Lord questions why Boris never ruled out proroguing Parliament, when it should be obvious. If you all want a deal, he needs every option on the table, because you Ramonas keep jumping on the mainstream media, screaming how you want to block a no-deal Brexit, or block Brexit altogether, which weakens our position and the economy, let's not forget. Of course, you don't care about the UK though, do you? You only care about lying in your pockets. The Tory MP James Cleverly points out that the Ramonas are getting scared of Boris Johnson, before Ian interrupts him claiming he is not scared. Did you notice how Jo Coburn did nothing to stop him interrupting? She is always quick to stop a Brexiteer interrupting a Ramona. Instead, Jo claims Boris is done for before he starts, according to Ian Blackford of course. Since when did the SNP ever become the experts on politics? We all know the Tory MPs won't vote to bring down the government in a no-confidence motion and end their own political careers for good, will they? Let's be honest. When push comes to shove, they will cave. Ian won't be able to admit that though, because he lives in a fantasy land where his party actually holds some power. Fuck me, the Lib Dems are taken more seriously than these SNP shitweasels. And that's saying something. Now let's move on to the next clip.
Well, he, of course, talked in a sort of one nation Tory style at the very beginning of his victory acceptance speech. We'll show you just a little bit of that in a moment. But let's go back to what he talked about when he said he would deliver Brexit and unite the country and defeat Jeremy Corbyn and energise. This was the acronym DUDE, a joke there by Boris Johnson. I mean, it's ambitious. Is it achievable?
Well, he's got four things to do now, of course. There's the deliver the D, Brexit, there's the unite the party, and then defeat Jeremy Corbyn. To do all that, he needs to energise the country, hence the do thing. So his pitch is, I'm different, I'm new, I'm going to do this differently. Now, the EU are going to have to listen to him. So he does have one shot. I think the next 48 hours are going to be absolutely crucial. What he says, what jobs, key people play in his cabinet, you know, Brexit secretary, all that sort of thing will set the tone for really the next 100 days and whether he succeeds or fails.
Well, let's just have a listen to part of that acceptance speech from Boris Johnson.
I know some waggles already pointed out that deliver, unite and defeat was not the perfect acronym for an election campaign, since unfortunately it spells dud. But they forgot the final E, my friends. E for energise. And I say to all the doubters, dude, we are going to energise the country. We're going to get Brexit done on October the 31st. We're going to take advantage of all the opportunities that it will bring in a new spirit of can-do. And we are once again going to believe in ourselves and what we can achieve. And like some slumbering giant, we are going to rise and ping off the guy ropes of self-doubt and negativity. With better education, better infrastructure, more police, fantastic full fibre broadband sprouting in every household, we are going to unite this amazing country and we are going to take it forward. I thank you all very much for the incredible honour that you have just done me. I will work flat out from now on with my team that I will build, I hope, in the next few days to repay your confidence. But in the meantime, the campaign is over and the work begins. Thank you all very much.
What's that cabinet going to look like, James, in terms of delivering Brexit?
Well, I mean, you've highlighted people who have said they're going to return to the backbenches. It shouldn't be a a remarkable idea that people who serve in a government feel able to subscribe to and publicly defend government policy. And through this campaign, Boris has said that we are going to leave on the 31st of October, that he wants to do that with a deal, but if we have to leave without one, then we will prepare ourselves for that. And so it is a clear and unambiguous message to the parliamentary party who supported him in the first stage, and the membership of the party who supported him in the second stage.
Right, to accept that this is someone new, that this is a very dramatic move, mid-term, if you like, within the Conservative Party, that will inject a different type of optimism and enthusiasm, both within the Conservative Party, certainly, and it'll also make the EU sit up and listen.
I think it has injected optimism, perhaps wrongly placed, in the Conservative Party. But I have to say that Boris Johnson's talking about uniting the country. How you can talk about uniting the country and a no-deal Brexit at the same time is one of the most divisive policies this country's ever seen. I think we're in a period of crisis in this country. If you look back through history, in times of crisis, countries have been united. If you go back to the Second World War, which was, I think, a time of crisis of the country pulled together. Nothing Boris Johnson has said to date indicates he has the ability to pull the country together in a time of crisis. So any optimism, I think, would be pretty short-lived, because the country will suffer so greatly and so badly under a no-deal Brexit.
Well, we're going,
and that's what he's promising.
Angela? What's the alternative? So if a deal can't get through, so we've all agreed that the preferable option is to leave with a withdrawal agreement. If that can't be done,
you don't agree.
If that can't be done, then what would be your...
My advice, if Parliament can't reach a deal, I would go back to the people and say, this is what's happening, what do you want? And I don't see why it is so bad now to suggest
there are only three ultimate outcomes through this. We leave with a deal, we leave without a deal, or we don't leave. So if we can't get a deal, which one of the other two would you prefer?
If you can't get a deal, you have to ask people again. You can't get a deal.
Not process, ultimate destination. Which one?
I think you have to go back to the people and ask. People say, we want a deal. You've been unable as a government to deliver a deal. It's been incompetence.
So you would scrap Brexit? You'd be happy to revoke Article 50?
I would go back and ask the people, are you still signed up to this or not? Give an instruction to Parliament.
What end point?
Give an instruction.
See, Jo, this is the thing. This is the weasel words that we're getting from the Labour Party.
We're going to talk about
Brexit.
Brexit.
They're unwilling to just be honest about what they want to do.
Let's explore it later, Angela. We're going to explore it later.
So you heard them talking about the DUDE acronym that Boris used during his acceptance speech, which is deliver Brexit, unite the Tory party, defeat the Marxist Commissar Corbyn, and energise Britain. The Sun's political editor states Boris will need to work hard over the next 48 hours, and that the EU will be forced to listen to Boris because even he knows Boris is a whole different animal to Maybot. She is worse than a limp dick, like an ingrowing one or something. Boris is more like a semi-hard one. He could flop, but he may get excited and become hard. Only time will tell, I guess. The clip ends with an extract from Boris Johnson's speech that we all saw earlier in the live stream, and Joe asking what the cabinet will look like in the terms of delivering Brexit. But James rightly calls out the fact the BBC have only really highlighted people who don't want to serve Boris and return to the back benches, essentially calling out the BBC bias without Joe even noticing it. Because, of course, she is too caught up on questioning James about the makeup of the cabinet. I'm guessing she's praying that Boris won't have an all no-deal Brexit supporting cabinet, which the Tory MP rightly points out any minister in the government should back the government, as is the normal practice. Obviously, of course, the Labour Lord is full of doom and gloom about the disaster of a no-deal Brexit and how we need another referendum because she is not happy Remain lost. Change the fucking record, will you, love? It's getting boring now. You lost. Suck it up, you dry old snatch, and try to take the defeat with some fucking dignity. James called them weasel words from these Ramonas. Now we all know they are shit weasel words, let's be honest. So we'll move on to the next clip now.
End of austerity, that might happen under Boris Johnson government. That's something you're welcome in.
Well, look, but the point is that if Brexit takes place, we're going to be poorer. It's going to be austerity on stilts. And the fact is, James talks about what is the answer. The answer is actually to stop Brexit taking place. And I am glad that a group of Scottish politicians went to the European Court of Justice and got the determination that we have that option, if we so choose, to stop this whole process. Look, the fact remains, when Tom had a debate with the two leadership candidates last week, Boris Johnson admitted he did not know what the cost of a no-deal Brexit would be. We now know from the Office of Budget Responsibilities, we know from the IMF, it's going to put people out of work. It's going to make all our constituents poorer as a consequence of this. We've got to be honest with people, and I'm afraid this is about Tory ideology, and the whole Tory leadership election has been about the threat they see from the Brexit Party. That's why the mess that we're in. And you know, when you talk about police officers, for example, I'm glad that in Scotland, where we've got our own government, that since the SNP came to power, we've got 10,000 more police officers than when we started. That's the difference with a government that's getting on in its day job, and one here that's delivered austerity for the last 10 years, that wants to drive the economy into recession, because that's what will happen with a no-deal Brexit.
Right. Well, if that is the case, what will it do, Boris Johnson, the announcement and the confirmation that he is going to be Prime Minister, do to support for your nationalist cause?
Well, look, I will work firstly in this Parliament to try and stop Brexit, but of course we need to have a conversation with the people of Scotland about the alternative that we have.
Will it, do you think it will increase support for independence?
All the polling evidence seems to suggest that that is the case, but I want to build
a
positive case.
Boris. Well, you must welcome Boris Johnson, because that's what you want, Ian Blackford, more than anything else.
I want to stop the UK harming itself and make sure that the UK...
Well, that's very noble, but
that's important. But, of course, then we have to say to the people of Scotland, you will face a choice. Do you wish to stay connected to a United Kingdom that wants to drive us off the cliff edge, or will you take responsibility for yourselves, remain a European nation, one that's focused on delivering economic growth, fairness and taking responsibility for our climate obligations? That's a choice that people in Scotland will face.
OK, right. Well, and then looking ahead to, as Ian said, you've got a problem in Scotland. How do you deal with your Scottish problem in terms of support? Because there will be, to some extent, an increase in support for independence, with Boris Johnson now confirmed as Prime Minister.
Well, the SNP claim that sunshine will increase the chances of independence in Scotland. So I'm not going to play too much store by that. But the bottom line is, so Boris is always...
Is the union at risk?
No, Boris is a unionist to his bootstraps. And the point is that there have always been accusations of, the terrible things that will happen when Boris took office in City Hall in London. And actually what we saw is a city more at ease with itself than either previously under Ken Livingstone or subsequently under Sadiq Khan.
All right.
That's not the case.
Well, at this point...
So Joe Coburn tried to give something for Ian to be positive about, saying Boris Johnson might end austerity. But of course, Ian's unrivalled Brexit and Boris derangement syndrome prevents him from admitting that. It's just Brexit chaos with this idiot. Everything is a disaster to Ian if it's not him getting his own way. It's all Project Fear with the SNP, remember? Joe asked him what Boris Johnson's decision about no-deal Brexit will do for the SNP's attempts to leave the Union. Of course, it will do nothing because the people of Scotland won't want to be governed by these shitweasels. The last independence referendum showed them that. But of course, they complain about the Brexit vote, so they will always moan whenever they lose an independence vote also. Joe even mocks him for his contradictory stance against Boris, because as if he claims it will help them get Scottish independence, then he should be all for Boris, causing the panel to chuckle. How embarrassing to be humiliated on national TV by Joe the commie cumbucket Coburn. I'm guessing Joe dislikes the SNP more than the Brexiteers. It's not often I agree with Joe Coburn, but fuck me, it was good to see her call out his fucking hypocrisy. Make your mind up, Ian, you flip-flopping shitweasel. Joe then turns to James Cleverly about the so-called Scottish problem, who instantly shits on the SNP tosspot by saying they claim sunshine will increase the chances of getting independence, so we shouldn't even pay attention to it. And that's right, James, the SNP talk so much shit they should not even be taken seriously. He points out the Union is fine and will still be fine after Brexit, before showing us that Boris derangement syndrome has been around since before Brexit, pointing out the smear campaigns in the run-up to the elections for London Mayor, and they obviously didn't work because he won. James says that Boris made London more at ease with itself than Ken Livingstone or Sadiq Khan, which the Labour Lord of course disagrees with, ignoring the fact that London has gone to complete shit now under Sadiq Khan when it comes to crime and public safety. Now let's check out the final clip.
Does the backstop have to come out of that withdrawal agreement? Is it going to?
Well, I voted for the withdrawal agreement, so I was happy with it in its current form. The truth of the matter is that it didn't get through the House, and what the new Prime Minister will need to do is find something that can get through the House. That's the priority. Discussing now what the precise detail is ahead of the negotiations, it's a fun part of the game.
It's not just precise detail, is it? It's rather critical to the whole negotiation.
But the point is, you're right, Joe, it is critical, but what the thing we should focus on is the something that can get through the House of Commons. That's the thing that should be focused on.
But the real issue is that the European Union has consistently said, as Michel Barnier has said just in the last few minutes, that they will not open up the withdrawal agreement. The withdrawal agreement is as it is. They are prepared to discuss the political declaration, but the backstop stays. And thank goodness it does, because we need to remember it's there because of a peace treaty, the Good Friday Agreement, the fact that we've had relative peace in the island of Ireland for 21 years that we should all celebrate. But so we're going to come back to the same problem here, is that Boris Johnson is not going to get a fundamental change from Europe.
You don't know that. You don't know that, Ian
Well,
Blackford, because actually the whole point is, and some of the people I've been speaking to, both here and in Brussels, is that they never really truly believed Theresa May would actually go for no deal. If they truly believe that Boris Johnson is prepared to go that far, they may look at it differently.
No, I mean, Europe has made it clear consistently. I've had conversations with people in Europe over the last few days. They are not going to move on the withdrawal agreement. The responsibility that Parliament will then have is to whether or not Parliament is prepared to take off that default position of no deal. So we've stopped, or we've tried to stop Boris Johnson proroguing Parliament. We need to stop the calamity of no deal, and Parliament's going to have to do its job working cross-party to do that. Boris will not get this through.
So the last question we're going to look at is about Northern Ireland's situation surrounding the backstop and the EU saying they won't negotiate the withdrawal agreement. Ian Blackford claims the EU won't change the withdrawal agreement before saying that Boris can't get anything from Europe, which forces Jo Coburn to shut him down again, as she claims people have told her they're willing to offer concessions because Boris Johnson will leave with no deal, as where the EU always knew Theresa May was never going to leave with no deal, as she is a hardcore Ramona. Of course, Ian tries to shut that down, saying he has had conversations with people saying the opposite. Well, Ian, if someone tells you something, that does not necessarily trump anything anyone else has to say about the matter. It's just a he said, she said. But of course Ian is right, because Boris is the devil, and we get the usual Project Fear bullshit to finish off that clip. Ian Blackford has some of the most extreme Brexit and Boris derangement syndrome we will ever likely see. We all knew the Ramonas would go wild once the vote was in and Boris won, even when possible policies that would be in line with the SNP policies, for instance, are mentioned. He still goes off on one and gets called out for his hypocrisy, saying Boris is bad for the UK but good for Scottish independence, while still sitting there moaning about him. It's unbelievable. This shitweasel is one of those perpetually offended fuckpigs who moan and complain about everything. If Scotland got out of the UK, he would still be there moaning about some imagined depression. What an utter tosspot. So I'm going to end the video there, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Remember to like, subscribe and share the video, as it helps the channel a lot. And I will see you all in the next video.